Hi everyone, welcome to the next episode of the Bay Street Capital Holdings podcast titled How Do You Do It and Why Should I Care? This series aims to highlight women doing amazing work in various industries. So today we are so lucky to be joined by April Pope, who is an HR consultant at A Plus HR Consulting. Hi April, absolutely lovely to meet you.
Hi, Laila. Nice to meet you.
So let's start off with a quick introduction. I guess, how did you do it and why should I care?
Yeah, so as you said, I am an HR consultant, an A plus HR consultant, which is something I started on my own. I started having family and friends asking me for HR advice, and I was like, maybe I should just make a business out of it. So that's how I kind of became an entrepreneur under that. But I also am known as a diversity, equity, and inclusion advocate, a leader in HR, engagement strategist, and I am passionate about people and getting stuff done.
Awesome, lovely to hear. So, what inspired you to start your own company and also join the HR industry?
Yeah, so entrepreneurship is definitely different from your 9 to 5. So especially in this point in time in my life, I'm also a stay-at-home mom and
Oh,
of a 6-month-old. So it is definitely a full day for me. And working a regular 9 to 5 doesn't always work for everyone. And I like to spend a lot of time with my daughter teaching and just learning from her and myself as I go along. So whenever I was working full time, I knew that it wasn't the space that I wanted to stay in. So I just started doing some consulting on the side with the advice given to different friends and family. And then I started to monetize it. Um, and I got into human resources because I love people. So I had to narrow it down. There's so many different avenues you can go down with working with people, and I know I didn't want it to be in retail or sales or um, a call center where I'm talking all day and things like that. But with human resources, with every organization, it's necessary. I don't think people realize how much HR departments do with their companies, but it definitely helps each company be successful in every aspect because people are organizations' um, greatest resource. Period. So if your people aren't happy, then your business is probably not going to be as successful as you think it might be. So I got into HR because I love the problem solving aspect of HR, the processes of it, and also with the employee engagement portion of it, it definitely increases employee morale through organizations. So, if your employees are engaged, then they'll more than likely be more productive, which in return helps the bottom line.
yep, for sure, agreed. Happy people definitely make a good corporation and organization.
Mhm.
So, you mentioned that you obviously wanted to work with people, and that's what spurred you to join the HR industry. But what would you say were the best resources that helped you along the way?
Yes, so I'm very grateful for my network, period. So I also was in the military for almost 9 years, and
Wow.
I created a large network within that. So right out of high school, I enlisted, and then I went active duty for a while and got deployed, and so met people all over the world, and came back and switched back to the reserves. And there's a lot of different programs that the military has in place for transitioning um, soldiers or just soldiers that are, only part time that want to, with their career profession as a civilian, they, help build those things, help with the resumes, with career building. Um, and that was one of the main things that kind of helped push me into
Mm.
HR as far as the resources go. And with that, I've met other HR professionals that were um, HR professionals in the military, so they also have been mentors to me. And other resources are different social networks that I've joined within human resources, like the Society for Human Resources Management. They have different committees and networking events. So, you kind of meet different people who give different workshops on things. So, I would say that my network has definitely been one of the strongest influences and resources for me.
That's great to hear. And also, it's quite unique that you were in the military and you found a network there as well. So I'd love to hear more about your experiences. Do you find that a lot of your military experiences come into play in your everyday life?
Definitely. So, um, as far-fetched as it may seem, I was actually a military police officer. So
Wow.
it doesn't really line up with what I decided to do as a
Yeah.
civilian. But I can you repeat the question one more time? I know we're
Yes.
recording. Hopefully this can
No,
be
no, of
cut
course
out,
not.
but if not,
Yeah,
it's
no, no
okay.
worries.
It's something
No,
I
no
have in my
worries. It
mind.
can be. I was just wondering, do any of your experiences in the military come into play in your everyday life?
Yes, I remember now. So sorry. Definitely helps me with speaking to different people on different levels within organizations. So it has definitely helped me with communication skills.
Mm.
Whenever I've had to interact with individuals, because I had a leadership position as well in the military, so I had to work with um, leadership of the unit and also with incoming new soldiers. So also that has translated to working with entry level employees all the way to the C-suite, because even as an HR professional working previously, I worked in a corporate office of a company and I worked directly with the C-level employees. And it definitely helped me have the discipline to make sure I am, stay on task and organized with my work. But
Mm.
also, it has helped me, in those situations where most people may be intimidated or anxious about getting up and speaking in front of people or um, taking those risks. I think that my military experience definitely played a major role in that because after deploying, especially to a combat zone, you kind of just have to think on your feet and be
Mm.
confident in that you're making the best decision. And that definitely in everyday life is something that you may have to do. You have to take risks, whether it's for work, whether it's your personal life, um, whether it's for a difficult conversation you might want to have with a friend or a significant other. So I definitely appreciate um, the communication portion of the military and the courage that it gave me.
That's really awesome to hear and so, so interesting. So back to your career, what were some lessons that you wish you would have learned before starting in the HR industry?
Yes. So I wish that I would have gotten my bachelor's degree in HR. So it kind of took me a little bit to segue into a position that I was really happy with in HR,
Mm.
which also spawned me creating my own position as an entrepreneur. But um, yeah, I got my master's in human resources management, but my bachelor's degree is in human environmental sciences, which is the study of the interactions of people on different socioeconomic levels. So just how people interact in different demographics, which is really great, a really great skill to have in human resources for sure. But whenever people see human environmental sciences, they're like, oh, you work with plants. And I'm like, no, there's human in front of it. So um, yeah, so before getting into HR, I would have definitely loved to have known or just decided to, get my bachelor's degree in the business field rather than, a humanities degree.
Oh, awesome. Okay, okay. Well, leading on to our next question, actually, looking back on your career, what would you say is your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
Um, I would say that my biggest failure was settling for different positions that
Hmm.
I knew wouldn't necessarily help me get to where I wanted to be professionally. And I guess it was more of a failure because I was, I guess, naive to an extent to settle. So, I've had retail roles where I was initially told that I could eventually get into HR since the company was large. But while I was there, the company actually downsized their HR department. So that didn't become an option. And then with another company, I did a customer support role. Um, and all with the hope to get into HR. Um,
Mm.
but I didn't. Those routes didn't work. So I knew that I needed to get directly into a HR position. And so I learned that from those situations not to settle. You know,
Hmm.
there are different opportunities that come your way, and sometimes they are packaged very well, and the people lay it out like, oh, there's this growth opportunity, and if you start here and you can end up in whatever department that you want to end up in. Those things sound really great, but if you don't have um, the I guess the assurance that it's definitely going to play out, or if you don't know someone that has actually been through it and succeeded in doing so with the company and can kind of um, help mentor you along your way, then I would just say shy away from it. Just make sure you are extremely cautious about those things. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just was I learned that to not settle. And so now it definitely helps me in life, period. I'm much more happier with what I do and with what I plan to do. With moving, eventually, I plan on getting back into corporate America in HR.
Hmm.
So, once you know your worth and learn your worth and what you know you bring to an organization, then um, you're much less likely to be undersold on your value and accept things that you don't necessarily need and adds on a bunch of unnecessary years to your professional career history. Um, I guess to an extent it could be necessary. You learn things in different roles, but if you can get right into where you want to go early on, then that's better. But yeah.
Yeah, that's some really good advice, and especially to those who are starting out in their industry. I think that a lot of people just jump at the first job they get, but it might not be the best job for them. So I'm
Mm,
glad you came to that realization by yourself and you knew what to look for after that.
yeah.
That's pretty awesome. So I guess my next question is pretty much where you can basically spill all about your profession. So what is one common myth about HR that you would like to debunk?
Ah, yes. So one of the common myths about HR is that we only hire and fire people. Not true. Because if you're not familiar with HR, it's like, oh, this is the first person I meet. And then, oh, this person is the last person I'm seeing leaving. They're telling me that I don't have a job anymore. But
Mhm.
human resources is so much more. It's moving into the space now being called people operations because um, I think a lot of times that companies forget the human in human resources. So I'm glad that it's somewhat moving into people operations because it is you know people make the organization operate. And it's the same as human resources. So the main thing is to keep the human in human resources. But yeah, I've loved being in human resources, and I feel like I was about to go into another tangent from the question that you asked.
Oh no, no worries. But yeah, no, definitely. I completely agree about the myth that you were debunking about hiring and firing people, because it's not just that. You guys actually look out for the employees and you essentially make the company what it is.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Hiring and firing is definitely only a portion of what human resources does.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that whenever, there are, um, team building events or different trainings or, um, those times when you might want to celebrate Cinco de Mayo and the break room is decorated. HR does
Yeah.
all of those things, as well as, with performance management. If, sometimes supervisors aren't necessary, since they don't have all of those skills, the skill set for coaching people. It's HR's job to coach the supervisors and the leaders of companies to, you know, make sure they're retaining their talent rather than being like, oh, I don't want to deal with them, and the turnover rate getting higher. But HR, it's HR's job to figure out, why is there turnover in certain areas. um, are our employees satisfied in their jobs? What type of new trainings can be rolled out? Should we incorporate a new mentorship program to help people develop into the best employees that they can be? And someone's job productivity has decreased. Why is that? Then also a major part of HR is the employee relations aspect of it, where you know we're the people come to, who employees come to when they have troubles, or we want to celebrate your wins, and whatever else, your milestones in your life, because all of those things, when you're aware of the what your employees are going through, or the goals that they have, it definitely makes them more engaged, more likely to stay with the company. And then you're aware that if their shift needs to change because they have something coming up, if that can be worked out, or if someone's productivity has decreased, why is that? Do they have a family member at
Yeah.
home sick? Do they have one of the people in their household car broke down, so they're having to take people extra places? So
Yeah.
HR's job to pay attention to the details, and it definitely pays off for sure.
That's awesome. So I'd love to sort of hear more about you, and I'm sure you're very busy. You mentioned you are obviously an entrepreneur, and you have a 6 month old at home, so you must be very busy. But what have you read or listened to in your free time recently that's inspired you?
Yes, I actually brought the book up here. I don't know. Yes, Career Rehab, um, Rebuilding Your Personal Brand and Rethink the Way You Work by Kanika Tolver has
Hmm.
been really great. Um, it has definitely helped me um, rebrand myself, and just look at my career in a different light. So it's definitely been inspirational. I recommend for sure. And then there's a book called The Memo that pretty much explains what African American women need to do, or help African American build the confidence and the skills to earn a seat at the table.
Hmm.
Because minority women have to work harder, um, to get certain seats in rooms and at tables.
Hmm.
So that book is definitely helpful. Um, I listen to different inspirational podcasts. One being Michelle Obama's podcast. Her voice is very soothing. Period. So I was glad whenever she came out with a podcast. But those are the main things that have been uh, what I've been listening to that have been inspirational. Definitely been diving into the career rehab book though lately.
Great, good to hear. Next question is a bit of a hard question, but who are three people in your life who have been the most influential to you?
Yes. So I would say my mom has been very influential to me. I'm a first generation college graduate of my family,
Hmm.
I've excelled, succeeded, exceeded past every expectation initially of me, and I'm the youngest of seven. So
Wow.
my mom, yeah, my mom has always been an extremely strong woman. Um, definitely had a major part in who I am today. And, I talk to her, if not every day, multiple times a day. And, she has been very, uh, one of the most influential people because she did it all, really. I mean, she had seven children. There's a 20-year age gap between me and my oldest sister. She retired whenever she was working, and she never seemed tired, honestly. And I only have one small child, and I have a blended family, and I have a 7 and a 12-year-old, and it is a job in itself.
Mm.
So I don't know how she did it. I don't know how she does it. Um, being, a grandmother and a Gigi now, and still, taking care of children whenever she needs. She's always been very independent. So she's definitely been one of the most influential people in my life. Michelle Obama, of course.
Of
I
course.
just I love the initiatives that she's done and how hands-on she's been. I love watching some of her videos. With how girls rock, black girls rock. And when she goes to different schools to speak to children and young adults, and different occasions where people have had them on her talk shows. So I just love her energy. I love her style. And someone else who's been very influential in my life in the more recent years of my life is my husband, who's been my rock through a lot of things. I met him early on. I've been in Nashville, Tennessee for 5 years, and I met him the year that I moved here and didn't know we would be getting married. 3 years later, but he has definitely been extremely influential to me because whenever I got back from being deployed to a combat zone, I was in a completely different mind space, different
Mm.
completely head space and mindset. Um, that it was very challenging for me to make the transition back home,
Mm.
because there were a lot of bouts of depression and PTSD and all kinds of things where I didn't really dream as much as I did, and kind of started going through the motions of things. But I definitely appreciate him for helping me get back to me. He's a very creative person,
Yeah.
and he's an entrepreneur himself, and he's always pushed me to do the things that I love and do the things that I want to do, and don't worry about the things that can be worried about later, and because I like to think ahead, and I'm very big on planning. And he's like, sometimes you just have to go with the flow, because if your plan doesn't work out the way that you want it to, then you'll stress yourself out too much. And
Mm.
I appreciate him for you know helping me get to a point where one that I'm able to go with the flow more, and I don't let things uh I guess rattle me. But like I said, he's definitely been my rock and been with me through some valleys, and we've had a lot of mountains where we've celebrated as well. So um, I for the past half of a decade, I'm very gracious um, for my husband.
Oh, that's so lovely to hear. And then finally, to wrap up our conversation, what is one piece of advice that you would give yourself at any point in your life?
One piece of advice that I would give myself at any point would be, as I mentioned before, not to settle. It doesn't matter what it is, it can, I could have applied that a lot in every part of my life,
Mm,
military, um, with going towards my goal of being an officer, but remaining enlisted, and um, with my, degrees, I would have gotten HR as my bachelor's degree. With relationships, I think sometimes you kind of have to just go through life and experience different failures, whether it be in your career, um, your relationships, whether it be, a romantic relationship, or, friendships. Um, and with hobbies and different things in life, sometimes you just kind of have to live those things out. But um, a piece of advice that I would have given myself is to not settle,
mhm.
and just always remember your worth, and those things that you want and that you manifest, the goals that you write down and you pray over, they will come to you. They will happen if you
True.
put in the work.
Facts, facts. It's all about having that positive mindset.
Right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so, so much for talking with me today, April. It was lovely to hear your story and to hear more about your company and also your experiences in life.
Yes, you're very welcome, and thank you again for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.